108 participants in this conference.
Okay, 8 on the phone line and 4 of us here. I want to talk about Ho'oponopono today. It's something I heard about, I guess, through Jay and Adele 4 or 5 years ago, and we talked about it a little bit here in one or more of the scripts and kid classes. But it's an amazing statement on healing and on mind and on things like that, and there are just so many examples that we can bring from it through the rest of the class that I want to introduce it here today and let you all see what an amazing process that was. And before I can properly talk about it, I need to remind you a little bit about mind. Mind, we mentioned briefly, is a faculty of consciousness within which it expresses itself. I may have commented that it's the imagining faculty of consciousness, or the faculty that can produce dreams, or things like that. What mind does is it expresses whatever is in it. And it expresses it in images, in forms, what we call forms, I guess. But they're 5 sense forms. They have taste and touch and smell and feel and things like that. And the thing that Ho'oponopono points out so radically is that there's really only one mind. And there's only one God, and all there is God, all there is consciousness, and it is expressing itself in its mind, or the mind. And we all think we have a mind of our own, but we don't. We have a input port and an output port into mind. We're all looking at the same mind, but we're seeing it differently based on the content of our own current state of awareness. Different individuals looking into mind will see different things depending on what level of consciousness they're at, and what they believe, and what they're conditioned to believe, and things like that. So there's one mind, and we're all sharing in it, and we're all seeing it our own way, depending on where we are consciously and in conditioning and beliefs. And behind it all, though, the entire expression of God is in mind and is mind. So, and all the forms that we see are really the forms of God expressing itself, but we're seeing them the way we see them because of what we believe. And I also introduced a couple of years back, I think, and some people find it useful, and I find it useful, the idea of conscious energy fields. Everything that is in mind, which means everything, can be thought about as a conscious energy field. Clearly there's energy in it, and clearly it's consciousness, and it's a field, and that we know it's not matter, and it's not mind, not mental, it's spiritual, and spiritual individuals, the forms in mind, I find it convenient to think of as if they were conscious energy fields. And conscious energy fields have a particular frequency and a particular strength, which is part of what they are. And the reason this is important is because if two conscious energy fields are close enough together, they will tend to resonate with each other. And if their frequencies are at all close enough. So we being at a particular, and how much they resonate will depend on how strong the energy field they're resonating with is. So if there's a really strong energy field and it's close to your frequency, you will probably resonate with it. And what resonate with it means is that will become part of your state of consciousness, part of what you see. So we're all resonating with the stuff that's consistent with our beliefs and conditioning and our level of consciousness and all of that sort of stuff. This resonating mechanism is what's behind scripts attracting needles. The perpetrator and the perpetrated, the perpetratee, are at a close enough frequency that the great fear that we have as perpetratee, as kids, the terror we have as kids, resonates very strongly. And anyone who's close to us, who I mean physically in spatial distance, anybody who's near enough to us will pick up our vibration and start resonating with us, and the resonation, the performance of the script act, it resonates, performing the script act, abandoning you resonates with the fear of abandonment, and ignoring you resonates with the fear of being ignored, and all these fears that we have, which are our scripts, find somebody who resonates with them, and that's how they can act them out. And so that's the mechanism behind what we call radiating our scripts and people picking it up. That's the reason I like talking about conscious energy fields, is that allows me to think about that kind of thing. And the other kind of thing that it explains is why Chubb is influencing everything we see, and that is because at whatever level of consciousness we're at, we pick up all the thoughts and beliefs and ideas and energy, all the energy fields that make up Chubb, which is just a collection of energy, of beliefs, of energy fields. And if we're at a particular frequency, we pick up, resonate with all those beliefs in Chubb that are at a similar frequency. And so people that are at the 200 level of consciousness are resonating to the 200 Chubb, and people that are at the 500 level of consciousness, which is love, will resonate with the love concepts. And AA is at 540, unconditional love, and the people that come into AA start resonating with the consciousness there, which is at 540, and the unconditional love begins to seep into them. So there's a lot of things that are pretty easy to think about in terms of resonances and frequencies. And this also explains what it says in one of the sections of the Introduction to the Scriptum Kid Handbook. It says that we can think of ourselves as having a radio receiver and a transmitter that are tuned into Chubb. And this is what we're talking about, the part of us that resonates with, at a particular level of Chubb, means that ideas in Chubb that are close to our level of frequency, we begin to resonate with them, and of course our resonating with them is the receiving end of it. But then, because we're now resonating with it, we're adding to Chubb, and so we're a transmitter too, so that as Chubb gets us to vibrate with it, it's strengthened. Okay, enough about that. That's the mind background we need for this. Dr. Hugh Len, Haliaka Hugh Len, is a Hawaiian, I guess he's a doctor of psychology, and he's also a kahuna, which is the Hawaiian equivalent of a shaman. And he studied for years with a very high, very well-renowned shaman or kahuna. I guess you could call her a priestess, although that's not the right word. I'll just use the word kahuna. He studied with a very high lady kahuna in Hawaii for years, and it's a state of very elevated consciousness. It's the equivalent of the way you get in lots of other teachings. So he studied with her, but he also has a background in psychology, and he has a doctorate in psychology. And he was called upon by the state of Hawaii to take over the Institute for the Criminally Insane on one of the Hawaiian islands. I don't know whether it was for all of Hawaii or just for one of the islands, but there was this Institute for the Criminally Insane, and with quite a few inmates. And these are the people that are, unreformable, and they can't do anything with them, and they're criminally insane. And the description of the place before he went there is that many of them were in chains, even in the facility, and even like when they went to lunch or dinner and went to have meals. Many of them were chained or restricted or restrained. I assume straight jackets and things like that. And I'm sure they were all being medicated. And it was a very unpleasant place for the people that worked there. The high turnover rate of the people that helped there was very high. And the turnover of psychiatrists who were in charge of the place was also very high because it was a very unrewarding job. And somehow they talked Dr. Hugh Len into doing it, and he said he would do it, but only on his own terms, that he would do it his way, completely his way. Now what I want to tell you is what his way was. Could you put that behind the door handle so it won't click? Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Now, Dr. Hugh Len's way of treating these people was that he would go to his office alone and close the door and bring up the folder on one of the inpatients. And he would review it and see what it brought up in him. And he would do what he called cleansing on that. In other words, he would remind himself of what the truth is about that, and he would clean up that thought in his mind. Whatever came up when he read the reports about these people, he would do what he called cleansing, but he would work entirely within himself in his office behind closed doors. And during the time he was at the Institute, he never met with any patient for a therapy session. He may have encountered them in the halls, or I assume they had a cafeteria or something like that for lunch. He may have encountered them, but he never had any therapy sessions with any patient. And over a period of time, chains were no longer needed, and the people who were facilitators there started liking working there and started staying there. And occasionally somebody would get released, and people were getting well and they were getting healthy, and eventually the entire facility was released individually and closed. And he did all this by sitting in his office, reviewing the case files and seeing what that brought up in him. And that is a phenomenal story, and it's verifiable. it just moves me deeply. You know, what a phenomenal display of the story. And this is why Joel says in his healing work that we never treat a patient. He says this over and over. We don't treat patients, we treat ourselves. And this is the extreme in treating ourselves. By treat ourselves, I think he usually means remind ourselves that that person is God or something. But, you know, Dr. Hugh Lin was a black belt self-treater. And he, you know, all these people got released from a facility for the criminally insane. This is proof that there's only one mind. And what he did was he saw what came up in him and he corrected that in himself very strongly. And that changed what he radiated. Okay? That's what treating yourself means in terms of healing. He treated himself in that he got to where he did not believe any of the stuff that was coming up in him and no longer tried to fight it or reject it. And we'll get into all of this a lot more when we get to the healing section. But he worked on his own beliefs about the stuff he was reading and his own beliefs about, and whatever came up within him. You may recall we did some work with Matt Kahn's Whatever Arises, Love That. I'm sure that he would have understood that perfectly. Whatever came up, he loved it and loved the person, the criminally insane person, and it changed his consciousness, and so he started radiating good stuff out. And because he was of a very high consciousness, he was of a very strong consciousness, because you may recall that the consciousness scale goes up logarithmically, so that a person that's a point higher than you is 10 times stronger, so he was a lot stronger than these criminally insane people. And you know, this one example, the reason I love this one example so much is that it verifies for us that we do radiate thoughts that stronger, that higher thoughts, that you know, enlightened people are stronger than unenlightened people, that there is one mind, that we do radiate, that we do pick up, and you know, it demonstrates conclusively, I feel, the nature of mind and the nature of infinite way healing, or how infinite way healing should be, which we'll get to, as I say, in a couple or 3 weeks maybe. So, a lot of people noticed him because of this demonstration, and he started doing a work. There's a book out called Zero Limit, I think it's called, that explains about all of this. It wasn't written by him, it was written by some guy who has been promoting him. I don't know whether he wanted to be promoted or not. But there's a guy who wrote a book called Zero Limit about this, and why did I bring that up? I don't know.
He radiated.
Yeah. Any event, he started. Oh yeah, I know why. Because this guy with this guy that did Zero Limit, he started putting on classes and weekends and retreats and stuff like this, and people are invited to come to the retreat. And he started teaching his methods and showing people how to do this work. You know, healing seminars we would call them, or revealing seminars we would call them in the infinite way. But I don't know what they were called. But he had a very simple formula that he told us about, and I did not go when I say told us, I mean people that went there, but there's a bunch of stuff on Leelaa.org under other stuff. You'll find an entry there on Ho'oponopono, and you can see some YouTubes about from one of the sessions that he taught, that he mentored. In any event, he had a practice that he teaches people, and the practice is very, very simple. When confronted with anything, especially something like an insane person or a sick person or anything like that, but when confronted with anything, you say, I'm sorry, Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And this is the process that he applied. He calls that process cleansing. And he means cleansing himself and cleansing his beliefs about that. And that's the Ho'oponopono process. And it's sort of interesting to us. Coming back into infinite way terms a little bit, what he's doing by cleansing is deconditioning his mind. And the Zero Limit book, Zero Limit, the Zero Limit is a completely unconditioned mind. That would be the ultimate of this work. And I made some notes here. Until I am continuously, consciously seeing myself and everyone else as the Christ, I need to clean. Whenever I see somebody as other than the Christ, as other than God, I need to clean. And the I'm sorry is, I'm sorry that my mind is still in such a sad shape that I can think that thought, that I can see this appearance that looks like not God, because the looking like not God is in my mind, not in God. It's in my view of the mind, not in God's mind. I was said earlier that there's only one mind, but I see what's in the mind as adulterated by my forms and my beliefs and the stuff that's going on in my consciousness. Let me do a quick aside here. I heard this morning that the idea of separateness from God, the person was talking about the idea of being separate from God, and he suggested, stand in front of a mirror and look at it. Okay, now, the image in the mirror is not separate from you. It can't be separated from you. You can't separate the image off and have you here. If you're here and the mirror is here, then they're not separated and can't be. And what came to me while reading that is like mind. Mind is a mirror. We can think of mind as the mirror of God, in which God is expressing itself. But when I'm looking at the mirror, I'm looking through my own set of glasses. I may have warped set of glasses, or I may have colored glasses, or I may have distorting glasses, or I may have dirty glasses, or I may have astigmatic glasses, I may have any form of glasses. And if I'm looking at the mirror through my glasses, then I'm seeing what I see as the image rather than the image that's there in the mirror. If you are standing in front of a mirror and put on a distorted pair of glasses, the image in the mirror will appear to be distorted. But it's not. It's your perception of the image in the mirror that's distorted, okay? So the I'm sorry is, I'm sorry that I'm wearing a pair of glasses that sees this distorted view of you, God. Please forgive me. And please forgive me is for having this in there, and it's like a request of self. I put down here that it's really asking self with a capital S to help remove this conditioning from my mind and therefore Chubb's mind. Therefore Chubb's view of mind from Chubb's beliefs. And then thank you. Thank you for helping me see this better. And I love you. And you can take the I love you as I love you self, or I love you kid who's seeing this distorted image, or I love you image that's being seen. All of those need love, or can handle love. So there's a I don't know where this is going. There's an added element in here. The please forgive me is where we're going to an outside power for forgiveness. The please forgive me is not of the thing we're considering, and the please forgive me, the victim or the patient or the image in the mirror. We're not asking the image in the mirror to forgive me. The please forgive me is really asking for God, Christ, whatever you want to call it, to correct my pair of glasses, these false beliefs I have, these false ideas I have, these false concepts that I have. And this is, this is the point at which Joel would say, stop pondering and get silent and realize the presence of God, because where you get silent and realize the presence of God, that's the place where the cleansing happens, where the idea gets transformed. And healing just means cleaning glasses, revealing the truth. So I see the please forgive me as the slightly before we go and drop into silence to realize the presence of God, and we're asking ourself, our higher self, to bring light to this aspect of my mind, and let's clean this up. And we're also asking the world to please forgive us, because as long as this thing is in my mind, I'm broadcasting it. This is the opposite of world work, and so this process of cleansing, the Ho'oponopono process of cleansing, is what we can truly think of as world work. This is clearing it out of the consciousness, and clearing it out of my consciousness, and as Dr. Hugh Lin demonstrated, therefore out of the consciousness of those people immediately around us. And this is the process that we actually lift the level of human consciousness to the next higher level. And then a couple other thoughts came. Actually, it's attaining humility enough personal. I'm sorry, please forgive me is part of attaining enough humility. And I say in parentheses here, zero personal sense, enough humility to let God be realized. In other words, the recognizing the problem, the I'm sorry and the please forgive me are the pondering that precedes the ability to go into silence. And it's what I'm getting right now is that it's my job to take full responsibility for the fact that I can see that error. And therein lies the humility, and therein lies perhaps the ability to get silent enough to realize the presence of God with respect to this particular misfunction of my mind, and get that particular function of my mind corrected. And the thank you, I love you, is, to me, exactly what it sounds like, you know. So as I said, it's I love you to everything involved, and the thank you to my higher self. I also made a note here, cleansing with respect to someone or something else is exactly the same as loving my neighbor as myself. I have to be that place in consciousness where God's grace is shown forth, and that's exactly what Dr. Heelan is. An amazing place where the grace of God shows through, and it looks like healing of the criminally insane, but what it truly is we are not healing. He did not heal the criminally insane. What truly happened there is he revealed the fact that these forms that were being seen as criminally insane were in fact expressions of God. Okay? To me, this is a very high teaching and a very high story and a very high concept, and it binds all of this stuff together in a way that I hope we will be coming back to regularly, and I hope it will bring up lots of questions in you, which will be brought up and asked about. And this is the crux of Infinite Way Healing, and it's the crux of world work, and it's the crux of raising the consciousness of humanity. It's the crux of bringing world peace. It's the crux of everything, is cleansing whatever comes up in my mind. That Kant should have said, whatever arises, cleanse it. Let's sit just for a minute and see if anything else comes up. I really feel that this is for me, this is the nut of the whole thing. This is a focal point that just really demonstrates the whole show. So let me see if anything else needs to be added here. Otherwise we'll take a break for 5 minutes or so. No, I think that may be it, and I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to start adding confusion. So let's take a break until the top of the hour, and let's try to remain silent during that period. We'll come back at the top of the hour, and if you have any questions or thoughts about this, write them down right now and bring them after the hour.